Lord and place those vowels under the word that is God's name, because it had been lost how to say his name. Because whenever they would be reading in the text and they would come and read the name of God, instead of reading the name of God, they would say Adonai, the Lord. Now, our Bible translators continued to follow that practice and have continued to follow that practice throughout the years. That's why in your Bible, you come across, you're reading through your Bible, and it has the word Lord, and they're all in capitals. But we're not certain. We're not certain how it was said. And so our Bible translators, so that we will not say the name of God either, write in the word Lord. Sometimes then see the word Lord where the L is capitalized, but the O-R-D are not capital letters. That's the word Adonai, which means just simply Lord. So that's the difference in how you can tell when you're reading along. And it was interesting because I was sharing with Judy one day. I said, the Jews refused to say God's name. I mean, this was even during the time of Christ. This had probably been going on for maybe up to 6 centuries before the time of Christ. Some people believe that even from the time that Moses first wrote the name of God, that he taught the people not to say it. And I said, so I guess it's appropriate that not only do they not say the name of God, what the Jews then do is there are other names of God. Y'all remember we've done that study, and one of the main words for God, and it simply just means God, G-O-D, is Elohim. And it's the generic word for God. And Jews won't even say that word. And so what they do is they mispronounce it on purpose. As they're reading their Bibles, when they come across this word, Elohim, which just means God, they mispronounce it. Because in no way do they want to break the commandment and bring offense to God or God's name. And so they either don't say it or they mispronounce it. And so I was in the office one day and I was telling Judy, I said, I've always found that was an interesting fact. And that's when it occurred to me. That's when it occurred to me that we do the same thing. We practice that same thing. Not only in our Bibles do we not print God's name, and we don't teach people to say it, again, because we're not exactly sure how to say it. But then when we do say it, we mispronounce it. Because we say Jehovah, and there is no such word. It's a mispronunciation of God's name, because God's name begins with a Y, not a J. And by like sign, we do the same thing in the New Testament, because we mispronounce the name of Jesus, because that's not his name. His name is Yeshua or Yeshua, and we pronounce it Jesus with a J instead of a Y. And we do that because of the Germans and all that. But I thought that was very interesting that it had just occurred to me that here the Jews do all this mispronunciation of the name of God because the name of God is so holy that they won't say it. And then that's exactly the same thing that we do. We do the same thing. We don't pronounce it either. And when we do pronounce it, we mispronounce it. Now, we might mispronounce it for a different reason than they do, but we also mispronounce it. One night, the night before Jesus was crucified, Jesus had just washed the disciples' feet and talked to them about service to one another. Judas had left the scene to go and betray Jesus. Jesus had predicted the betrayal of himself by Simon Peter. And that's when he gives that famous oratory that we most often use in association with funerals. In my Father's house, there are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you so. And if I go away, I go to prepare a place for you, that where I am, there you may be also. And so on and so forth. And when he gets through with talking about heaven, Philip says to Jesus, Lord, if you'll just show us the Father, it's enough for us. And Jesus looks at him, and I am sure with total exasperation. I mean, the next day he's going to the cross of Calvary. These men have been with him at the very least for a year and a half, and at the most for nearly 3.5 years. These are the guys that he has invested all of his time in. And Philip asked a question like that. And Jesus says to him, have you been with me so long that you don't get this? Don't you understand that if you have seen me, you have seen the Father? That I am in the Father and that the Father is in me. Now, because we have the full New Testament, the complete revelation, we often look at that night and we look at Thomas, who didn't know the way to the truth and the life. And then we look at Philip, who didn't understand the relationship with the Father that Jesus had. And we just want to shake our heads. Why didn't they get it? Well, I don't think that they got it because, first of all, the veil wasn't completely lifted yet. The cross was still in the future, just hours away, but it was still in the future. Jesus had yet to be resurrected from the dead. And remember, they didn't even get that. No matter how many times Jesus told them, they didn't get it. The comment of the men with Jesus as they're walking along the road to Emmaus is some say that he said he was going to rise the third day. And a group of our women have said that they've actually seen him. So obviously, in those early years that we read about in the Gospels, there is a lot of confusion around the person of Jesus and who Jesus is and how Jesus is related to God. And the truth of the matter is there was confusion. At least it took the church a while to work out the verbiage, the words that would describe that relationship in its fullness. And you've got to remember, from the time that Jesus was resurrected and ascended to heaven, it was up to, at the very least, 45 years later before all of the books of the New Testament were written. And for any one individual or one church to have been able to collect them all at one place, well, that took quite a while. That took quite a while. And so the folks have the message of the gospel and they have the words of the New Testament in piecemeal. And because it's in piecemeal, lots of things are by word of mouth, oral tradition, and it's easy for things to get confused that way. But other than the big events of Jesus' life, the miracles of Jesus' life, we know that the Bible tells us, as we read this morning in Hebrews chapter 1, verse 3, that Jesus was the radiance of the glory of God. He is the manifestation of the mighty presence of God in our reality. And we can see that, surely we can see that through the miracles, through the healings, the walking on the water, the feeding of the 5,000. Those are